Look, I'm really excited to be here today. I really wanted to talk to you about how to be a failure artist. Now, look, I've got a title here. I'm the CFO of Pantheris. Pantheris is my new company. And CFO is not Chief Financial Officer, it's Chief Failure Officer, right? Because honestly, I have failed so many times in my career, and it's a pretty long career, so I've got a lot of failures in there. And when I was first asked to speak, I was like, oh, which one am I going to talk about? Because there's absolutely so many. And you'd think you get to my point in the career after working in sort of software testing for about 30 years that, you finally get the hang of it and you'd be like, yeah, I've got all this kind of experience. I don't fail anymore. And that is so not the case. So I am still failing spectacularly. I'm going to share some of those stories with you today. Now, just before we go, there is that speaker. People, FailConf really want us to get feedback. We never know whether we're going to fail or succeed unless we get feedback, right? So please, at the end of the talk, use that link down below the slides and give some feedback to the conference. They find it super useful for them for next year. But today, I'm going to share a story, and it's not a story about tech. It's actually a story about how I learned to ride a motorbike. So are you ready? Get those leathers on, get the engines revving, because here we go. Right. Now, look, 2 years ago, I had never dreamed I would go on a motorbike, really, to be honest. But then, as we know, COVID happened and Australia got locked down. We were not able to travel anywhere. We were not able to leave the country. We were not able to even leave a state. And so I found this really, really hard because normally I travel maybe 2 to 4 times a year. I go overseas for conferences, for speaking, training, but also my family is based in Europe. My family is Irish. And so I would go and see them quite a lot. And look, many of us are in this situation. We're just not able to travel and see our loved ones. And, I found this quite difficult, challenging to deal with. And so I thought, it actually started getting me down a bit. And I thought, I've got to find something else to do. And then I thought about it. It's like, well, why don't I learn to ride a motorbike? And I had this huge vision, you can see this picture of this woman on a motorbike, and I was going to have the wind going through my hair, flying down the highway, being a free spirit and living the dream, right? I could just see it. I was there. So look, my partner was having a significant birthday. So my partner and I said, oh, why don't we just go and get our L's, for a motorbike? And so it turns out it's actually quite easy to go and get your L's for a motorbike. You just take a 2-day course. You go up to this very secluded area. There's no other traffic around. And they take you through all the safety tips and they give you a motorbike. So you practice on a motorbike. You never go past second gear. And it's really, really super safe and very easy to do. And we passed with flying colors, right? After 2 days. And we had our L's and we were so excited because we were on our way. In fact, we were so excited, we went out and bought a bike. And it was a Honda 300. So, we were there. We were just about to hit that road, except something happened, and that's called reality. Reality got in the way. I suddenly realized how terrified I was of riding a motorbike. You see, I had learned in all that secluded environment, I hadn't considered all the potential obstacles on the road, all the potholes, all the bumps and lumps. And that's not just the road itself, the quality of the road, but it's also all the other traffic out there. So riding a bike in traffic in Sydney was completely petrifying. I kept on thinking about all the things that could possibly go wrong. I even felt bad because I didn't have a seatbelt on. Like my fear was totally out of control. Secondly, I hated the bike. I absolutely hated it. The clutch on it was really, really sticky. And so I ended up doing all these kind of bunny hops as I was starting. Now I blame it totally on the bike, not on my terrible riding skill. But, it was really difficult. I kept on stalling everywhere in front of lights. And actually one day I was on the bike and I came to the T-junction. It was on a slight hill and I was trying to turn right and the bike stalled. And I'm like, oh, here we go. But because it was on a slight incline, I couldn't get it started again. And in fact, it started tilting and the weight of it just fell over and I actually dropped the bike on the road. Now, it's a Honda 300. It's actually quite heavy. So even worse, I couldn't pick it up. So I was sitting in the middle of the road with this bike. And eventually this guy in his ute came along and he had this hurly-burly bloke. He kind of opened the door and he sauntered over and he just picked the bike up for me. And I got back on the bike and he helped me on my way. And but I was so mortified and so embarrassed. This was not the vision I had of me riding a motorbike at all. So I kept on falling off the bike. And also another thing was my girlfriends, when I told them this is what I was going to do, they thought I was nuts. This is not a girly thing to do, and certainly not at my age. So that felt very, very strange. So like, not only was it difficult to ride a bike, but I was discovered that it's also socially not acceptable for a person at my age to learn to ride a motorbike. Plus, it's really, really dangerous. So honestly, after this experience, I felt like a total, absolute failure. My partner, by the way, he was doing great. He was loving it. But I didn't. I felt like I couldn't ride this bike. I felt embarrassed. I was mortified, actually. And to be honest, I really, really wanted to give up. Now, looking back at my career, the motorbike's not the only time I've had failures. I've actually done quite a bit of failures in my career. I told you I'm a bit of a failure artist. So, the failure to, I had a few things, even like very early on, I always wanted to be an engineer. But when I did my school exams, I didn't get enough points to do engineering. So I actually failed in my ability to be able to go and do that course straight away. I did actually end up doing engineering. I took a roundabout path to engineering, but that once I got into engineering and I started being a software developer and then a software tester, I was working within a company and I failed to get the promotion that I really, really wanted. Now I was probably in my mid-20s at the time, and it had such a huge impact on me. I was not expecting not to get this promotion, and I really felt it affected me significantly. Years went on, and these are my key failure points. So there was many other failures, but I just want to bring these 4 up. I'll be here all night if I talk about all my failures. But if I took a job as head of QA, and I was overlooking about 5 testers, and I built the team up to about 23 people, which was really excited. And once I'd done that, I thought, why don't I go for a job as head of engineering?
I'm very sorry to interrupt you, but we no longer see your screen.
Oh, right.
Would you mind sharing it again, please?
So what would you like me to do?
Just reshare your screen again. Maybe stop sharing
I
and
will
share it.
share. I was hearing a really funny sound. I don't know if that was me or what. Hang on. Let me
Could be
try
some
again.
notification from them.
That's all right. Okay. It was making a kind of warning sound for about, let me just try that. Okay. I was just in the middle of my story.
I'm so sorry. People wanted to
That's
see
okay.
the screen.
No, not at all. It's probably my tech.
Yeah,
Okay.
now we see your monitor again.
You can see?
Yes,
Fantastic. All
but not
right.
the presentation. We just see your
I'll
screen.
share it now. Yeah. I'm on it. Okay. All right.
Perfect.
So we're all good? Excellent.
Yes,
All
we are.
right.
We are.
Great. Thanks. So anyway, ended up, I went for the head of engineering and I got it. I got the role. I was so excited. So I now got an opportunity to do quality for across everything, not just testing, but also software development. I thought this is going to be so cool, except it didn't turn out to be cool at all. And I really didn't really struggled in the role, I'll be honest. It was a really challenging time for me. And, there was a lot of reasons here and there, but at the end of the day, I decided to walk away from that position. It was really not for me. And I walked out of that role feeling I had totally failed. And that was a very, very difficult time in my career. So I thought, well, I'll go off and I'll run a company. And I had a business partner that I wanted to work with. And I said, yeah, we'll build up our company together. It'll be the best company in the world. Except that we fell out and the whole thing just kind of went to nothing. And it was really a sad time. So look, I've had a number of significant failures in my career. So failure is not something that is uncommon with me. But let's get back to the bike story, okay? Right. So there I was ready to give up. And I was thinking, I'm really, really feeling terrible. I hate this. I'm not enjoying it. I feel so uncomfortable and I really, really hate actually getting on the bike. Should I give up? Should I actually just go, well, I tried. And I could kind of go, well, I gave it a go, but, obviously it's not for me. I've walked away from many things, and I don't regret doing that in many situations. Some people might call that giving up. So, maybe I could just walk away from this one too, and it would be okay. But it wasn't, and I couldn't. I didn't want to give up, honestly. If I gave up now, I felt somehow, and this might going to sound a bit weird to you, but I felt like I was kind of giving up on that dream of riding around on a motorbike, that vision I had of getting out and doing some traveling. And I didn't want to be cooped up in Sydney. I wanted to be able to get out. And I felt like if I gave up now, somehow I was giving up on that experience that I had always wanted. And so I kind of persevered. And there was another thing. My partner, he was really, really, some people would call it encouraging. I would say that he was really, he really loved riding the bike and I didn't want to let him down. So look, I didn't give up. I persevered and I started making progress. Some things really helped. We got a new bike. So clearly the bike that we had bought originally, it was just too heavy for me. And the clutch was very, very stiff. So we made sure we got a bike that kind of worked. And finally, we started just doing really small journeys. So for example, just doing 5 minutes around the neighborhood. And doing small different journeys that weren't too difficult. And also, my partner was just so encouraging. He kept on encouraging me to go out. Let's go out together. Let's do this. And as I said, I really didn't want to let him down. So kind of he kept that momentum going. So those things really, really helped. And gradually and very, very slowly, I could feel my confidence starting to build up. And I felt I could do this. But there was another thing that was helping me as I was doing this. At the time, I was doing a huge amount of meditation. And one of the things that struck me was, as I was learning to ride this motorbike, was that I was actually looking at some of the reasons. I couldn't understand why it was having such an impact on me, right? Like, why was this such a big deal? Why was not being able to ride a motorbike such a big deal for me? And I really started kind of thinking about that. I've been meditating for about 2 years now, and I found meditation really helped me think through some of the elements of what I was experiencing, and I'm going to share a little bit of those with you today. So I found that meditation helped me acknowledge that I was feeling really bad about riding a bike. There was no point pretending that this was, yay, great, this is oh fantastic. I was clearly in a huge amount of discomfort. And being able to acknowledge that was a really, really good thing for me. It helped normalize the situation. I started being able to separate feeling failure of the events and feeling failure of me. So I think a lot of the time when things didn't go right, I was like, I'm a failure, right? And clearly that's not the situation, but that's how I was taking it on. So for me, being able to separate those two things started to become very, very useful. Being able to give myself time. I will get this. I will get through this. Proved to be useful too. And focusing on the now. So rather than focusing about, oh, I've got to be able to do this big trip around Australia, it was more about, let's do small steps right now. What can I do today? What can I do that will help me through and get a bit more confidence today? So taking those small steps and really building up the experience was very useful as well. And finally, the other thing was just highlighting that positive aspect of learning and just being less hard on myself. Like, riding a bike's quite a tough thing, quite a difficult skill to acquire, especially when there's a lot of traffic around. So, being more encouraging to myself and giving myself a little bit more slack about not being able to pick it up straight away. I thought it was interesting. I wanted to share this kind of thing about, sometimes how we look at problems. I think often in tech, we try and solve a lot of problems by being logical. So we use our minds, and we have some amazing minds in tech, right? And we're very good at analyzing, particularly in software testing. We're very good at analyzing, categorizing problems, putting them into boxes and sort of having logical reasons why, what to do in this situation and what to do in that situation, and we're used to black and white, ones and zeros, pass, fail. I'm not sure we can apply that to our daily lives, right? Not every problem can be solved by the mind. Sometimes you need to be able to listen to your heart, or perhaps even your body. I know that kind of sounds weird, but when I talk about body, I'm really mean by actually doing stuff. Sometimes there's no point thinking about it. Just go out and start doing things. You remember those little baby steps I was doing out there? Just get out and do something. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Make it a little thing and just go out and do that. I think it's really important to acknowledge how we feel about things as well. We don't need to shout it out to the world, but just acknowledge to ourselves and maybe those close to around us that this is really hard for me, or this is quite a difficult thing. I'm feeling quite overwhelmed in this situation. Choose who you want to share that with. But if you have trusted people around you that you can turn to help you in those situations, that's going to be super, super useful as well. All right, back to the career. Right. So, do you remember those kind of failure points that I talked to you about? You know, when I kind of map those on top of all the things that I've done in my career, there's something that sort of looks quite interesting. You know, if you look at those failure points, this is not all those activities I've done. That's not bad for a failure artist, is it? Right? I mean, actually, turns out to be that those failure points are a great catalyst for learning. And you know, I talked about that failure to get that promotion in the early years. Well, that was the time I started my first business as a direct result of that. And so that was something that I turned out absolutely loving doing. I really enjoyed running my own business. It's such an experience for me that I've thrived in. That failure as head of engineering, guess what? Yep, that was a catalyst to start a second business. So, you know, failure sometimes accelerates growth for us, right? And as you can see, it certainly hasn't hindered my career. And so I'm going to end this with you today, just to have a think about, thinking about failure. Is it really failure? I actually want us to turn this around a bit. You know, failure doesn't have to be a bad thing. You know, when you look at, when you develop a product in tech, you know, and you're a small startup and you hear about these stories, you know, and how they don't really quite know what the product's going to be, but they do lots and lots and lots and lots of little experiments. Yeah. So they do these lots of little experiments to figure out what is it that our consumer wants? What is it? So they learn from these little experiments, and then once they figured it out, they pivot. So I reckon we should be pivoting in our careers as well, in our lives, you know, doing little experiments on ourselves to figure out what do we really want? What do we want to try and do as much as possible? And then using those experiences to make decisions about where we want to go and what we want to do, so that we can look at those points and say, well, this is actually something where I pivoted to something else, rather than this was a downside to my career. And I think that's a much more positive way of looking at some of these situations. So that's about it for today. Look, my goal is still to travel around Australia. I don't quite look like that snazzy person in my dreams where, you know, with the long hair flowing out the back. But, you know, I am having so much fun learning to ride. It's still super, super challenging for me. Even today, I was really finding it hard to feel confidence. But I do know that my confidence is getting better. I'm still out of my comfort zone. And honestly, I hate that feeling of being out of my comfort zone. But I know that really with this feeling comes growth. And growth means that I'm learning, plus I'm living life to the fullest. So that's my story of how I'm learning to ride a motorbike, because I don't think I've quite got there yet. I'm here to take any questions you have, maybe on tech, maybe on career. I'll try and answer one or two on motorbikes if you have one for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was a very interesting talk, and I'm super happy that we have taken the on the final gear, starting the day itself with. Next time when we are meeting, Anne Marie, I would like to be a pillion rider. I hope you will practice.
Yeah, I hope you have confidence in me.
Yeah, let's do that. So we have a questions on the Q&A channel here. I will read one for you. So, were you judged each time you failed, and how did you handle that? Because Mahati becomes very vulnerable when someone does that to her. So, what is your advice on that?
Sorry, could you just repeat that question again?
So, when people judge you for failing, and
Yeah.
you vulnerable, how do you deal with the situations?
Look, judge other people's judgment on you. That's look, that's a really hard thing to take. I find that if it's people who I am very close to, that matters to me because these are people I love. So if they're giving me some feedback and they're disappointed in me, that's really, really hard. For people that who are not in my, I wouldn't say, who are not close to me, I'm like, you don't necessarily have that right to judge me in that situation. I'm less concerned about that. I think that giving yourself a little bit of space and time, separating experience from who you are, really does help. So it's like, well, this thing happened and I'm going to learn from this experience, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm a that I have failed as a person. I'm still the same person who I was. It's just that this thing has happened and I can learn from that. There's things that I can learn from that. I think there's a little bit of again, I say things like meditation have really helped me kind of be able to separate those feelings. And I think that these things aren't something that just disappear. There's probably something that you're just going to continuously work with, and gradually you'll learn that that you'll find that these situations happen again, and you'll find that you're just a little bit stronger than you were the last time, and you'll be able to handle it a little bit better. But if again, if it's people that you love, there's a reason why it hurts is because you love them, right? So that does make it hard. If it's people who are criticizing you who are not doing the same thing that you're doing, like if someone's criticizing you for how you're testing your software and they're not a software tester, they don't have that experience. So what would they know? So I'm less I kind of separate it by saying, well, you're not in, what's it Brené Brown says, you're not in the circle, you're not in the arena.
Cool. Thank you so much. We still have some 3-4 minutes. If we have more questions, people, please feel free to ask. You don't know when you will get next chance to be in live session with Anne Marie. Okay, Mahesh has a question. The career slides had so many different blocks and what's so colorful. How do you manage your time to cover all of them? Yeah, it's a very interesting.
Oh my goodness. Look, the biggest thing that drives me when writing is my love for writing. And I do it for those reasons rather than for really anything else. It's a great way for me to work through my ideas and work through ideas that I have and feelings that I have, and so I use that as a medium for that. To me, it's a joyful experience. I don't force myself to write, so I enjoy that a lot. The podcasting and other mediums that I use, I'm getting better at sort of doing those, but I find that if I partner with someone else, often that helps me keep motivated because then I'm, I've made a commitment with someone else to do it, so that makes it a bit easier for me to keep going. But the trick for me is never, I try not to force myself to do stuff. So it's, you'll see periods where I go up and down and things I'll write like 3 posts in 3 weeks and then there'll be nothing for 2 months or something like that. And that's perfectly okay for me. And so I try and not beat myself up too much if I'm not doing stuff because, life gets busy. It's okay to put your family first or put other things first in front of these things. Unless it's your job and you're getting paid for it, that's different. But if you're just doing it as part of your,
One last question for you, perhaps, for this session here. Did it take you long to rebound from your failures? What helped you the most?
Yeah, some of them took a while, I'll be honest. Like, it feels like that, and it's kind of weird. The younger that I was, I feel like I bounced back quicker. I don't know why. Maybe it's that the older you get, the more you kind of, you realize the impact of I don't know. There's something about getting older and being more fearful. But I find now that I'm wiser in the sense that I know to give myself time and space, and not quite be so, hard on myself, I guess. So that's been better for me. But I guess the kind of failures later in life, they're more failures. They're not really. They're not failures. I don't really see them as failures, but they're definitely learning experiences, and they're very profound learning experiences for me. So I'm very grateful to have them. It's not something that I would feel that, oh, I wish this had never happened. I'm actually quite grateful that I went through some of those experiences.
Excellent. Anne Marie, thank you once again for
Not
this
at all.